I've got this written as a B flat 7 sharp 11, but obviously it has a sharp 9 in it, so it's kind of like altered scale, except it has a fifth in it. So you could get this by playing dominant diminished. Like if I were going to play altered over this, I'd have a problem because there's a fifth in the chord. Even though there's a sharp 9 and a flat 5, which actually is a sharp 11 if we have an ordinary fifth, then you know, I couldn't do altered over this. So instead I could do dominant diminished. You familiar with that scale? It's pretty cool. You want to take a little pause from this song since you have the PDF and talk about that for a moment? I've probably mentioned it before because there's a context, but I don't know if we ever went over it. So we'll do it in B flat. So here's what you do. You know, here's the diminished scale. We'll start with that. So you start with your root and you go to the 2 and the flat third. And then the A string is going to be the index finger, middle finger, pinky. Yeah. So that's going to be, yeah, 6, 8, 9, 6, 7, 9. Yep, 6, 8, 9. We're starting from the root here. This is the diminished scale. This is also known as the whole half scale, the whole tone, half tone scale. Because we go up a whole step, then we go up a half step, then we go up a whole step, then we go up a half step, and then up a whole step, and so forth. So after this, you're going to shift down a fret. So it's going to be 5, 7, 8, 5, 6, 8. It looks the same as what you just did. Except, oops, my bad. Yeah. So we got 6, 8, 9, 6, 7, 9. Did you do 6, 7, 9? There you go. And now that shape, like the way that looked, you shift down a fret, and on the next string you do the same 2 strings like that. The D and G string will look the same, except now it's obviously different frets. It's going to be 5, 7, 8. Right, exactly. 5, 7, 8, 5, 6, 8. It's called the whole tone, half tone scale, or yeah, whole tone, half tone. Anyway, so the high 2 strings are the same as that as well. Yeah, the B string will be 5, 7, 8, and the high E string will be 5, 6, 8. Right? All right. So the way dominant diminished works is that you would just go up a half step and then play the same thing. So this chord, B flat 7, right, that has a fifth, but also has a sharp 9, and also has a flat 5. this case, you'd want those altered tones, but you'd want a standard fifth. So you do dominant diminished. So you play this note, the root's fine, with your index finger, and then shift up with your index finger, and then play that same scale we just learned. Except it's all a fret up from where we learned it. Cool? So it's a symmetrical scale. Half tone, whole tone. The other way was whole tone, half tone. This one's half tone, whole tone. And the easy way to play it is to do the shape we already know, like this. But then just move it up a fret. And you can include the root, obviously. So you'd have a chord like this. And if I were going to improvise over this, I would want to play something like these notes. You may notice your diminished triads in there. Yeah. Okay. So here's a little background on when you can do dominant diminished in less bizarre circumstances as this song I did. If you had a jazz tune and you had a 2-5-1, you can use dominant diminished in place of the 5 chord, like for altered, for like an altered sound. Now, there's a reason why you would and wouldn't want to do it, especially, but I'll just demonstrate it first. If you had a 2, 5, that was, altered, like with a flat 9, and then 1, all right, 2, 5, 1. Then you could play dominant diminished, which means now notice if I played a flat 9, a G7 flat 9, and I were to, let's say, switch the flat 9 with the highest note with my root, like this, like that, I get this kind of interesting. If you were to put your flat 9 as the lowest note, just like this, now we have a G sharp diminished chord. See that? So you could play. Well, this is where you could use that diminished scale that we talked about. Anyway, just something that kind of might help see it. But now, when would you really want to use it, or not particularly want to use it? It basically comes down like this. If you're doing a 5-1 and the 1 is major, when you really want to do the altered scale versus dominant diminished, or vice versa, is it's based around the 1 chord. So if you have a 5 chord that goes to a 1 chord and it's major, the 1 chord is major, then you want to use the altered scale. And if you do 5 chord that goes to a 1 chord, but the 1 chord turns out to be minor, then you would want to do dominant diminished. Now, either one would work either time, but here's the reason why I say that, as far as like especially why you'd want to use it. If you're playing the altered scale, you're going to have these notes, and like let's take your B string. This is just a really guitaristic way of seeing it. On your B string and the altered scale, you'd have the flat 5 on the 2nd fret. You'd have the sharp 5 on the 4th fret. And you have the flat 7 on the 6th fret. Okay? Now, when you play a C major 7 chord, you have the 3rd on the 5th fret, and you have the 9 on the 3rd fret. All right, so with the altered scale, you get all these tensions. Either one of which could resolve to either one of those consonant pitches. See that? So what makes it really hip is that the notes in the altered scale are not the notes in your C major 7, so that it creates like an impact that it changed from these notes to these notes and creates that tension and resolution. You know? Even if it's the 9. So if you played like the flat 5 to the root, or a flat 5 to the 9, or sharp 5 to the 9, or sharp 5 to the 3rd. Either way, those dissonances, they change from those groups of notes to the inside groups of notes, the consonant ones. Now, dominant diminished. Yeah, so dominant diminished, the B string would be this note, right? 3rd fret, 5th fret, and 6th fret. Right? Which is going to be the 5th, the 6th, and the flat 7th. Those are all Mixolydian notes, basically. Right? Now, obviously not all these notes are Mixolydian notes. It just so happens that on the B string there, those are going to be really, those are all like diatonic notes. Then when you resolve to a C major, it's not that special. It didn't really, there was no transition, you know? You're just playing these notes, and then you resolve to one of those notes, and it doesn't have very much impact. See what I'm talking about? Now, that may not be the case for the entirety of the scale, obviously. Like if you played the flat 9 from that dominant diminished scale, then you can resolve it down to the 5th. You know? So you have like... but that flat 9 is also in the dominant diminished scale, and we can keep that strong resolution into our 3rd, which is a really important one. But we have the flat 9 in the altered scale, but we also have that sharp 5 and that flat 5. Cool. Now, on the other hand, if you had a G7, which is going to go to a 1 chord, the 1 chord turned out to be minor, then the same rules, or the same logic would show you why you would rather do dominant diminished here. Because if this were a C minor chord, that means that like if we had an altered scale where we're playing like a sharp 5, that sharp 5, which would be our strong, like real resolution, like tense note, just stays in place to resolve. And it's perfectly good, and you can use it, but it's not as powerful. It doesn't have that sense of like change. So like if you played the dominant diminished scale, you would have had a 13 instead of a sharp 5. So you'd have this. And that 6 or 13 is going to resolve down. See that? Also, if you had a 2-5-1, I mean, it turns out kind of cool. Like if we're 2-5-1 major, right? We got your D minor, got the 3rd on top, and then a G13, and then surprising, you actually go to a 1 chord, it's 1 minor instead of major. You get this like, walking down. We got, and that adds for a lot of interest too. Plus also, well, yeah, that's probably enough to get the point across. So over minor chords, if you have a 5-1, you can do altered just like you would if it was major, but it'll sound really hip if you do dominant diminished. Here's the altered. Dominant diminished. Altered. into minor, it didn't sound so fancy because it didn't. It's the root that even made it sound better. But dominant diminished. Suddenly that minor third became really like, kind of like a meaningful note, because the 13 contrasted with it. Anyway, so that's a little bit of information on that.